Hey, Raider Nation, welcome back. It's time for another edition of Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast covering your Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, we've entered the the dead period. Nothing going on. This is when you're going to see a lot of lists, and we're going to do them here too. We're going to have some fun looking at all-time Raider grades, looking at other lists going in, and kind of prognosticating around what might happen when the Raiders head to camp. So we're going to do that over the next few weeks. And I don't do that alone, thank goodness. That would be boring for me. Instead, it's myself, Scott Gulbransen, along with my co-host, Mr. Mo Moten, as you know him, Midtown Mo. He is a senior NFL writer over at Bleacher Report, also Raiders columnist at sportsnot.com. You can follow him on x.com at Mo Moten, Moemoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is SNB Today. Mo, for those of us who work in this stuff, the dead period, other than us looking for content to create, whether it's writing or video or podcasts, it's a little more difficult for that stuff. But for us, it's a little bit of a respite. I know most of the people don't care about us out there as far as what our schedules are and all that, but we get to enjoy a little bit of a different pace during the summer. I'm sure the same is true for you, my friend.
Different pace, a more light. I would say lighthearted, but more of a creative time. If you're a content creator, beat writer, reporter, writer, this is the time of the year where you can get creative with your audience, whether you're writing or talking, and kind of dig into, like you said, rankings and lists. If something pops up, a rumor pops up, you can kind of dive into certain topics, but you can take this in many different directions at this time of year while teams are at break. Well, I will say though, Scott, it seems to me that the training camp period starts a little earlier than usual. You're noticing that a lot of rookies are going to report mid-July. I guess I'm used to training camp like ramping up in August, but we're gonna be locked in. I mean, I think the rest period, the down period, isn't as long as it used to be.
No, and I think with the Raiders in the sense that, they have an opportunity to make a jump this season. I think you see the buy-in, and that's really we've been talking about it for weeks now, and going back to when Pete Carroll was hired, is that you just sense a different feeling around this stuff, and I think that that's where we're at. I think these guys all want to get in there. They're chomping at the bit. That means they're excited when you see kind of that energy around a team, because sometimes you see teams and they just kinda stroll in and for whatever, that might be some confidence too, so I gotta give them credit there. But I think that with the Raiders, there's a lot of excitement. I know feel it with the fans because they tell us about it, but I think with this team, the pieces they put in place, a new veteran quarterback who looks to be a massive upgrade from what they've had, it just seems like they're ready to go. And so training camp can't start soon enough for them, and it'll be fun. But yeah, I agree with you too. For us, it's in a creative time. It's an opportunity also to look ahead, right? For us to look ahead and start to think about, okay, what does their season look like? What are the other teams doing that they're going to face? What's the rest of the AFC West doing? And we have a caller on that later in the show as we get to it in segment two. So there's lots of other things to do there. But certainly, we're going to be part of that, and we appreciate you guys being with us. Do us a favor, by the way, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, the audio portion. Now, you might be watching us on YouTube or Rumble or Facebook or wherever you're watching us, but do us a favor. The audio, that's important. Make sure you go subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that auto download button. Make sure you're there. We also appreciate when you rate and review the show. So thank you very much for doing that. And also, if you're watching us on one of those video channels, make sure you like the video, share it with other people, and subscribe and hit the notifications bell. All right. Mo, we're going to jump into something that you wrote this week because I really like this piece. I thought it was good. You talked about one player who could basically get cut, lose their job overall. And then you had two other players on that list of three who really are fighting for a starting position. And if they don't, they could be a reserve player. So I want to go into that a little bit and just give everybody some sense for what we're talking about here. If you're watching, you'll see the piece up on there, but this is up on Sportsnet. It's also linked in the description of the podcast and the video below. So if you're just listening, you'll be able to find it there. But you had this story, this piece that you did on the Raiders and these three players. I want to go through these because I think this is pretty fascinating. And it's most fans are going to agree. And I think you look at these three players, and they're all very important to the function of this team and what they're doing. A lot of continued stories around the Raiders defense and the fact that it's good. We saw one in the RJ yesterday about the Raiders coaching staff feeling good, that they feel that they're really good on all three levels. That's debatable. But in this one, I want to start with the guy I think a lot of people are really interested. I think most people still pulling for the guy, and that's edge rusher Tyree Wilson. Talk about Tyree Wilson and what's at stake for him in this camp. Is this make or break for him in a Raiders uniform, or is this a situation where he's going to be between a starter and a reserve player?
I think this is make or break for Tyree Wilson as far as is he going to make it to next year. So Tyree Wilson was a backup as a rookie. Now we understood he was coming off of foot surgery and there was going to be a slow ramp up. So there was no expectation for him to start. Chandler Jones was there, supposed to be that guy. We all know what happened with Chandler Jones going AWOL, but his second year, there was a hope that Tyree Wilson would have a jump. Now he had a very slight, minimal uh, uh, jump there in strides, but not enough to earn a starting job. Caleb Von Chason was probably the Raiders' more impressive young edge rusher. Now, Caleb Von Chason signed with the Patriots this a year in free agency, but Caleb Von Chason not being there, Malcolm Kuntz is now back. Malcolm Kuntz missed last year. Tyree Wilson is basically battling to be the third edge rusher, but he's seeing competition from Charles Snowden, who played decent, pretty well for a limited role last year. And he's also going to face some competition, according to Tashawn Reed from Jai Joyner, who's the undrafted edge rusher, who made some noise at spring practices. So Tyree Wilson is not a lock to be your third edge rusher. And if he doesn't get that third edge rusher spot and he falls further down the depth chart, I can see the Raiders trading him before the deadline or next offseason. Now, if he is impressive at this training camp, he'll have another shot to show he can make a moderate improvement. Remember, this is a former top 7 pick 2 years ago. So you're hoping that he can show a little more than he's shown that he's healthy, but it's not a given that he's going to have competition for his spot.
Well, and Mo, we've seen coaches and regimes come and go, right? Haven't we, since we've been doing the show together? And one thing we always talk about when that happens, and I think this is relevant for this Tyree Wilson conversation, is the idea that they're not married to this guy. They did not draft him. They have their vision and what they want their guys to do. And if you don't fit in it, bam, right? So there's no loyalty here. There's no real deep personal relationship. I'm sure, obviously, Pete Carroll is a guy who players love to play for. And you see it, him joking on the field and all that stuff. Yeah, he's going to have a good relationship with Tyree Wilson no matter what. But again, they're not anchored to him. And so to me, I agree with you on this one. I think this is going to be big. And I think we might know early. I think if he goes out there and we're getting reports from our brothers and sisters on the ground who are covering the team at practice, and they tell us, not looking good. He's not getting a lot of time with the first. You're going to know pretty quickly. I think if Tyree Wilson's going to make it. So good one there, and we'll move on to your next player. And this one is not about getting cut, but you wrote about Dylan Parham. Of course, he can play two positions. He's not going to play center anymore because Jackson Power Johnson's there. So I don't think there's any chance of that. Talk about Dylan Parham. What does he have to show in at this very competitive guard position for the Raiders? What does he have to show in camp? And talk a little bit about your reasoning.
He has to show that he can be consistent. I think that's been the one thing that with Dylan Parham you're looking at. There are times where he's had good games, and there are times where he gets pushed around. But you also have to factor in the fact that he played three different positions with the Raiders. He's played mostly guard, left and right guard, but he's also been sprinkled in at center. Now, as you said, Jackson Parker Johnson is going to be the Raiders starting center. So Dylan Parham is fighting for what it seems like that left guard spot because according to Sean Reed, Alex Kappa is the front runner for the right guard spot, and Caleb Rogers is competing with him there. But it's basically, according to Tashawn, a three-man competition at left guard. Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, and I don't know why I'm blanking on the other guy. Oh, Thayer Mumford Jr.
Thayer Mumford Jr.
And
Yep.
Thayer Mumford Jr. has versatility going back to his Ohio State days. With their Mumford was supposed to play right tackle for the Raiders, but he's going to be thrown into the mix at left guard. I would say Dylan Parham should be favored to get the position because he has the most experience there with the Raiders. But it's like like Tyree Wilson, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be that guy getting the most snaps at that favorite spot. So Dylan Parham, if he can be consistent at guard, he'll have an opportunity to make some money because remember, next offseason, he's going to be a free agent. So this is a critical year. This is a crucial year offseason for Dylan Parham. If he gets the job, he'll have a chance to up his stock and make some money. If he doesn't win that starting job, he becomes a backup. Not going to be a happy camper because he's probably going to have to settle for a modest contract next offseason when he's a free agent.
Yeah, and I think he does. I mean, that's just my view right now, but we'll see again as we roll into camp. But fascinating that again, we've talked about it several times. That competition for that guard spot going to be one that we watch really closely and explore, frankly, a lot. I'd love to hear about what you guys think too. So if you call in, remember you can call in and be part of the show 702 900 7869. That's 702 900 7869. Leave a message. Tell us what you think. Who's going to win out at guard? What do you think is going to happen with Dylan Parham? We'd love to hear from you there. All right, Mo. Now we get to Zamir White. Now, here's a guy I really, going into this season, and I still a little bit in this camp, I don't know that he makes the roster, but that's if that remains unchanged at running back. So if the Raiders don't go sign anybody new, uh, I think he's there and he's going to compete. I think he competes no matter what. But tell me here why you believe he's still going to make the roster, but that he's going to be fighting for that time. He's not going to start, right? You have obviously Ashton Genty there, and he's going to be the guy. But they're going to share snaps. There's no question about it. You need that in the NFL today. But what does Zamir White have to do to elevate himself from being maybe on the cutting room floor to being a guy who's getting significant snaps during the course of the season?
It's at a Bleacher Report Live this week on Monday, and someone asked, "Could Zamir White be the Raiders' short yardage back?" And I
Mm,
told my response to that person was, if you watch Zamir White, he hasn't been a great short yardage back, even though he's a downhill ball carrier. Doesn't break a ton of tackles. Hasn't really been effective near the goal line in his career. And you would think a running back of his stature, he would be a little more effective on those 31s, those fourth and shorts, and he just hasn't. He hasn't been that. The problem with Zamir White is I think he's going to be competing for a special teams job with Dylan Albee because if we're basing this on last year, Sincere McCormick, I know the system has a lot to do with this, but Sincere McCormick was way more efficient and effective than Zamir White. So if you're
mm,
just mapping out the running back depth chart, and we know Ashton Genty is going to be the lead running back, it seems like Raheem Mostert is going to be the number two guy behind Ashton Genty and sharing on those pass catching opportunities. Then your third stringer could possibly be Sincere McCormick if he stays healthy, which again leaves the fourth spot for Zamir White or Dylan Laube. Now, remember, early in this offseason, the Athletics reported that the Raiders had made Zamir White available via trade. So
mhm,
there's already some writing on the wall that he may not make the roster. I actually think that he could be cut, and then the Raiders, if Sincere McCormick doesn't get bumped up to the third stringer position, the Raiders may go out and look for another running back to fill that spot and play special teams because Zamir White only played 3% of the special team snaps last year. Dylan Laube played, I believe it was 17% of the snaps on special, no, 42% of the snaps on special teams last year.
yeah, and again, Dylan Laube not drafted by this regime, not drafted by John Spytek. So to me, he's definitely a guy destined for the practice squad if he makes the squad, so to speak. So we'll see. But yeah, Zamir White, same thing there. And it's interesting. I know a lot of people like Zamir White and they really rallied around the guy. But you're right, hasn't shown what he can do significantly in the short yardage game. And so now you look at the value and the fit and you say, hey, maybe for the guy, for the player too, by the way, might be better for him to move on and find a situation that's better for him. So we'll see. But who knows? He could have a great camp and change minds there in Las Vegas and Henderson at the camp and see what happens and what's going on there. So we'll see how it all rolls out. But make sure you check out Mo's story up on sportsnot.com. Mo, while we're talking about it though, is there anybody else that you think maybe could be a surprise cut. There's always surprise cuts, right? Especially when you have a new coach, new GM coming in. Anyone else pop into your head? I'll share mine in a second, but anybody else pop into your head when you think about that?
If Eric Stokes doesn't win a job at cornerback, I can see him getting cut.
Mm,
Because if he is not able to beat out a rookie, Darien Porter, or DeCamerion Richardson, who's a second year player, then you might as well let him go. He's a veteran. Maybe he can catch on somewhere else. You're going to roll with the young guys because remember, Eric Stokes has been in the league for a handful of years now. If he can't beat an inexperienced cornerback who only played one full year at Iowa State and Darien Porter for a starting job, then let him go and let him find a position elsewhere and let the young and roll with the young guys and see what you got.
right. And I think even though he's been pretty consistent, he had some troubles last year, and it's hard with kickers. But Daniel Carlson going, and we talked about it before, going into the last year of his contract. I have not seen the Raiders invite another kicker to camp yet. If they invite one to push him a little bit and to perhaps get some upper hand in negotiations, because it's a business, remember, then I think that could be a surprise move there if they find somebody. I'm not saying they're going to. If they don't invite anybody to camp, then you know up front that it's not going to happen. But that could be a surprise. Just want to get at because I know people love Daniel Carlson. He's a good guy. He's done a lot and been very, very good with Raider Nation. So watch that. Though. I think it's going to be interesting. I know it's a kicker. Don't get upset. I know kicker. Just so we'll see. And some people will say, "No way in hell he gets cut." It's a weird business sometimes. But anyway, we'll check it out and see what's going on. Don't forget, check out Mo's piece up on sportsnot.com. Also, make sure you read him up on Bleacher Report. You got to find out what's going on in the rest of the league, Raider Nation. I know you care mostly about Raiders football, but know what's happening in the rest of the league. And you can read Mo every week to keep that up as well. So make sure you do that. All right. We're going to step aside for our break. When we come back, we're going to get to some phone calls and some other conversation around Raider football, including Ice Cube. Yeah, he's talking about the Raiders again. Well, his son is. We'll talk about that coming up next after the break. This is Silver and Black Today. It's Scott. It's Mo. We're coming right back at you. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Silver and Black Today, the home stretch here, the final segment of this edition of Silver and Black Today. Odyssey Sports, our buddies at Odyssey Sports, yes. Original podcast covering the Raiders. And we're glad to be back with you. Scott Gulbransen, Mo Moten, and Mo, I've seen everybody kind of tamp down a little bit on the not excitement, but just everybody's enjoying their summer. I know for you and I, at least I think we haven't talked yet this week before the show, but it is hot as hell here in Ohio. In fact, my son in Las Vegas is texting me pictures of the weather app on his phone where it's 5 degrees, 3 degrees cooler than it is here. Okay. And they don't have humidity in Vegas. So you add that in and it's just terrible. Although Vegas is getting 111 on Monday. So it's coming. But is it hot up there in the city? I'm sure it is.
Hot and humid. I'm not ashamed to admit I haven't been outside in 3 days. I don't plan to come out of my I don't plan to
I
go
love
outside
it.
until Thursday. So I've been if you know me, you know I don't like heat. Summer, people love summer. I'm not a big fan of summer when it's above 80 degrees. I'm a winter fall guy. I was born in the spring.
Yeah.
Ironically, I was born on an 80-degree spring day, a very warm spring day, but I do not like warm. I should say I don't like hot weather, and that is what we have in New York City right now.
On a spring day, a child was born. It was 80 degrees. We came out sweating. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. That's the Mo documentary yet to come. We're working on it. So it goes with the animated series, all that stuff. Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, it's hot. I know it's hot for where most people are. The whole country's having it. And hopefully you're staying cool. You're watching us or listening to us in the air conditioning in your car, your home, wherever it may be, unless you're out in California on the coast where it's nice and cool and you don't need air conditioning. So we'll see. Anyway, Scott Gulbransen, Mo Moten back with you. We're talking Raiders football. We're going to get to a couple phone calls here on this edition of Silver and Black Today. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us. Make sure you do that. Don't forget to rate and review as well. We appreciate that. And if you're watching us on video, subscribe there too. Hit that like button, the thumbs up button, and the bell. Yes. ding, ding, notifications bell, so you know what's going on. Mo, did you see this story? So Ice Cube's son, who looks exactly like him, and the Ice Cube's son is not a big Raider. I mean, he's sort of a Raiders fan, but he's not. But he's not like his dad when it comes to the Raiders. And he talked about his dad's Raiders. He's a O'Shea Jackson Jr. is a Rams fan. Okay. Of course, there's no Charger fans in LA, so he's a Rams fan. And of course, his dad was that. But he was talking about the his dad's love of the Raiders and how it went back to the NWA days when he was growing up and all this kind of stuff. And he said his dad is so overly excited about the Raiders this year, even more so than he's been in previous years, because his dad loves running backs. And I get it, because his dad's my age. And we grew up with those big, dominant running backs. And I say big, not in stature always, but Barry Sanders and Eric Dickerson, all those guys, Bo Jackson, right? So he said his dad is just like chomping at the bit because Ashton Genty is doing that. So it's interesting to see that. And I know this too, Mo, and you don't have kids yet, but when you do, you bring up your kids to be a fan of your team and all that kind of stuff. And like my baseball, I love baseball out there for the listeners. My kids could care less about baseball. And my Padres are coming to Cincinnati this weekend, so we're going down to see them. They're like, yeah, I get a hot dog and popcorn and blah, blah, blah. I don't care about the Padres. So it's interesting to see this play out with Ice Cube and his son, and especially since his son is a Rams fan. Rams, like you don't see. I mean, you see celebrities at Rams game, but you don't see anybody like repping the Rams. But now you see Jackson. He goes out Junior. I'll just call him Ice Junior. He goes out there in his Rams gear when he's on stage, when he's performing, which is really interesting.
Right. So I will say this quick story time. A lot of people, because I want to get this out of the way, because a lot of people,
Your Jets fandom, is that what you're going to talk about?
a lot of people ask me, how do you become a Raider fan in New York City? And long story short, I come from a family that watches sports, but there was no football allegiance in the household. So, mom is a Knicks fan, and most of my family, they watch the Mets, right? Grandpa was a Mets fan. I was born the year they won the World Series, right? So Mets and Knicks were non-negotiable for me. But since there was no football allegiance in the household, I picked my own football team, and that's what I chose. And I put that story out there because you talked about, parents raising their kids to be fans of the teams they rooted for, and you got Ice Cube and O'Shea. He went to the Rams instead of the Raiders as far as his allegiance is concerned. So I'm sure a lot of fans listening to us, because I know I've talked to a few and I've asked them, are you raising your child to be a Raider fan despite what's been going on with the organization, not a lot of winning, or have you had trouble getting your kid to root for the Raiders based on what's been going on? And there were some people out there say, well, my kid wants to watch a winning football team and it's not working out the way I wanted it to, but I'm trying. And hopefully things turn out for the better this year in the right direction with Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers and Geno Smith and Pete Carroll.
Well, and Mo, I'm going to imagine that, I don't know, I know some kids it happens earlier, but between the ages of like 6 and 8 is when you start to like watch football and pay attention to it because you're playing it with your buddies outside. And that was for you. I mean, the Raiders Super Bowl championship was 40 years ago. And that was about 5 or 6 years after is when you started to probably watch football. So the Raiders were still held in pretty high regard then, and they had won a Super Bowl within that span. And then, of course, then you had the early 2000s, the 2002 team. So you get it, right? Because especially for you looking for those teams, and I'm the same way with Notre Dame. Now, like I always talk about Notre Dame because I'm a Catholic originally from Chicago, right? So you kind of grow up around people rallying around Notre Dame. But my dad was a USC fan. Like, ugh, I'm not getting anywhere near that stuff. All respect to USC fans. Love your team. It's fine. But for me, it's the same thing. And then I talk about, and now, as you know, professionally, for the first time ever, I've been writing this year about Formula One. I've been a Formula One fan for a long time, and I'm a Ferrari fan, and they haven't been good forever since Michael Schumacher was there, really. And the same thing. Now, that comes from the family Italian side stuff, right? So that was a family thing. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to watch how kids, and you know what, sometimes kids, and I have 5, right? So 3 of them are one way, and there's 2 who want to always do their own way. They always want to do their own thing. Like, not going to listen to dad's music, or my daughter loves listening to my music and tries to steal my stuff, right? And all that. Whereas I got a kid who likes to wear ball caps. I got a kid who'll never wear it. And so it's just interesting how we all have different personalities, man. We all have different likes, and you would think that you grow up in a household, and unfortunately, we're seeing this with politics now too, where people have different political views, which in the past was okay because your family. People are disowning family over political views these days, so it's really strange. But I just wanted to point that out. All right, we're going to get to some calls today. Not a ton of calls, which is fine. Not a lot going on. But we got some good calls we want to get to right away. By the way, if you want to be part of the show, you need to. That's call in. Leave a message. 702-900-7869. 702-900-7869. A reminder, leave your name, the city you're calling from, and then your question or comment. Yeah, you can comment and say, you guys are full of crap, or you can say, you're brilliant. Right? Both of you.
Most of the former.
Both of us. No, I'm just kidding. Mo's mostly brilliant. I'm sometimes smart. So it's all good, but you can say that. You can say whatever you want and do it there. By the way, I have to say this because I usually don't like to talk about, I won't call it negative, but we did some videos. Remember, we interviewed our buddy Josh Kamamite from Raider Dad last time. Thank you guys for reaching out to him. I know we had some people already reach out to him. And I had a couple videos that we put up on the YouTube channel, and I got a guy coming on and complaining how bad the game experience is and how Las Vegas sucks. And I'm like, dude, this was about a guy getting kids to games. You can have your opinion, and I'm sure the guy lives in Oakland, but you can have your opinion, but it's about the kids, man. Like, even in your comments, just be happy for the kids. Even if it was a bad experience, the kids are going to have fun. Don't forget, Raider Dad. I'm going to pop that up here on the screen too. If you're listening to us, VegasRaiderDad.org, VegasRaiderDad.org. Check them out, help them out, and support the cause. So we appreciate that. Okay, let's get out to our first call. We're going below the Mason-Dixon line for this one. You ready, Mo?
I think so.
What's going on, y'all? This is Darien down here in Birmingham, Alabama. We talked a little bit on Twitter. At least I know me and Mo exchanged a lot of stuff on Twitter. Fellow journalist, fellow radio guy, so I love what y'all doing. But I had a question. Let me hear you guys talk about the win-loss record. And I have a prediction of 10 and 7. You guys saying 7 to 8 is more realistic. That's neither here nor there. My question is, let's talk about the Chargers. The Chargers were literally in the same position this time last year. They came off having a 4 or 5 win season the year prior when they fired Brandon Staley, when we hung 6-3 on them in Allegiant. Okay, cool. They go get John Harbaugh. They got Justin Herbert. And all of a sudden, he's a force multiplier. Is just some of the stuff I heard, which we know that's true. His track record was that, Stanford, San Francisco, Michigan, the whole 9. But I'm looking at the roster. Herbert, they go and get some J.K. Dobbins, and basically the Baltimore is throwing away running backs. And they had no receivers except for Lad McConkey. And then on defense, they had an aging defense. So why was it that it's okay? And I know the Chargers get the hype every year, but in this particular situation, why was it okay to think the Chargers can win 11 games last year, based on the fact that they got an improvement at the head coach and at the GM position? But here we are with an improvement at the head coach and an improvement at the GM and an improvement at the quarterback, and actually better weapons on the outside than what the Chargers possessed last year coming into the season, and arguably healthy, possibly a better defense. But we're supposed to just say 7 or 8 wins is more realistic. They had a last place schedule last year. We're going to have a last place schedule this year. So I really want you guys to really look at this and think about it and understand that it's very realistic that this Raiders team can actually win 10, maybe even 11, but definitely 9, 10 games. 7 and 8, that 7 to 8 wins is actually lowballing this team based on the improvements at the three most important positions. But that's all I got. Hopefully this thing get cut off. We'll holler at y'all later. Raider Nation for life.
All right, Darien down in Alabama. Appreciate the call, man. Very good call, and you bring up some good points, and we'll get into this, Mo, because I think it's a good one to deconstruct. Because when you have a division rival, and this is all, I mean, Darien does this for a living too, but he's clearly a Raiders fan. So again, you're looking at it through a different lens, and I'm sure he's looking at it through it a little more objectively than some fans would be that don't work in the business. But I look at this thing, and I can get to four things, Mo. But I want to start with the idea that, well, the Raiders roster improved as much as the Chargers roster, and it's better than the Chargers roster from last year, and they won 11 games. First thing I want to start with is situations are different. Remember, the Chargers got to play the Raiders twice last year, and the Raiders were 0-for in the division. So start with the division, okay? And Denver was obviously better. But then you look at schedule, you look at all these different things that pop out, and it's hard to do apples to apples where the Chargers were last year. And Brandon Staley was such a horrible coach. I'm not saying that Antonio Pierce was some great coach, because I was very critical of him all entire year, and it ended up with him losing his job. But I do think that if you look at Brandon Staley, was at the end of his rope after several consecutive disappointing seasons, and then you have the recharge and you have the culture shift. I don't know if you can compare the two situations. Can you, Mo? There are comparisons, but I don't know that they're equal comparisons.
So the first point is the point that you made. The Chargers last year with the Raiders were a distant fourth place last year. So you say, why is the win differential between the Raiders this year and the Chargers last year 2 to 3 wins? Well, the Raiders are playing in division this year with every team made the playoffs last year. The Chargers played in division last year where the Raiders were 0-for-6, did not win a game in the division. So there you go. That's one thing. They swept the Raiders last year. Are the Raiders going to be able to sweep any of these teams in the division this year? I highly doubt that. The other thing is, Darren, you brought up the point that, yes, the Raiders played a fourth place schedule this year. The Chargers played a fourth place schedule last year. That doesn't mean the schedules are the same, though, right? Because every year there are teams that were bad the year before and are good the following year. The Chargers are a prime example, right? There are teams that were bad the previous year and they're still bad, or they made minimal changes, or they may make minimal strides. You have to go through it not from the basis of, oh, it's a fourth place schedule, so we can compare it to the Chargers. When I do my win-loss predictions, Darien, and I would say this to everyone listening, when I do my win-loss predictions, I actually go through every game. Okay, what are the Raiders' weaknesses? What are their strengths? And how do they match up with that opponent? So the Dallas Cowboys, I'll use the Dallas Cowboys as an example. The Dallas Cowboys were 7-10 last year, subpar team, sub 500 team, right? So you're thinking, okay, that's a team that finished, what was it, third in their division, right? But that's not a third place team fully healthy that Dak Prescott is playing. And we talked about some of the weaknesses the Raiders had last week. What is that? The secondary, inexperienced secondary. The Raiders don't match up well as of today with the Dallas Cowboys, as hurtful as it sounds to hear this. But with a healthy Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, they got George Pickens now. They got Jake Ferguson, who's a pretty good pass-catching tight end. And, oh, by the way, Jalen Tolbert is a pretty decent wide receiver 3.
Right.
The Raiders don't match up well against the Cowboys passing attack with what they have in the secondary today, right now. And then you add in Christian Wilkins, who might be out. So there's a hit to your interior pass rush. So this is my point. I use the Cowboys as an example, but this is my point of why you just can't say, well, fourth place schedule, it's comparable to the fourth place schedule of the Chargers last year. You have to go through each individual game and how the Raiders match up before you come through with a win-loss prediction. And that's why I have them at 7-8 games. And that's why I have the Chargers winning double-digit games. And by the way, I was right about the Chargers. We'll see if I'm right about the Raiders this year.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing too, though, is, and I know, listen, I think he's right. The Chargers get overhyped every season. It's look, they're an LA team. The NFL Network is right there. It's just the way it goes. So I'm not disagreeing with that. But I do think you look at Justin Herbert. Yes, I know he hasn't won in the playoffs and all that kind of stuff. He's still one of the elite quarterbacks in the league. I know some people want to argue that point, but it's not so. And now the Raiders got better at quarterback too, but Justin Herbert is a young, dynamic, elite quarterback play. I think he's underplaying too what the Chargers did at running back. Now the Raiders obviously got Ashton Genty, but you look at the Chargers. They went out and got Najee Harris, right? Correct? Amari and Hampton in the draft.
This year.
Okay. So suddenly, and you know how Harbaugh runs his offense, Mo and Darien. And so I think they're going to be much more explosive. What does that do? If they can run the ball downfield far better than they did last year, then that frees up Herbert too and the weapons. So you look at skill players, Keandre Lambert-Smith, of course, Ladd McConkey last year, and you have Miranda Ganson the second out there. So look, they got better too. I know when you look at it in paper, because the Raiders, again, there's all the reason in the world. And I wouldn't tell you, Darren, you shouldn't be excited about the Raiders. And is 10 games a possibility? Absolutely, it's possible. It's possible if everything went right. But I look at everything else, and again, everybody else around them got better too. You might disagree with how much better, but it's just the way it is. Now, there's some teams that will get worse, but not in the division. The division overall is, I think, better than it was last year. And look where the Raiders. So to your point that you made at the very beginning, Mo, which is, they were a far fourth place. And so when you're looking at all those other teams, it's not like one of those teams. I mean, I have some question marks about the Chiefs based on last year too. But if you look at all those teams, it's not like one of them significantly got worse, right? So we'll see how it ends up. But the good news is we will know at the end of next season who was right. But I want to tell you this too while we were talking. And again, I know it's not always right. It could be dicey. But I ran 10 different scenarios. I asked AI. Okay, I'm bringing AI in, Mo. I know it's a dangerous time because they're trying to put us out of jobs. No. But I put AI in, and out of the 10 times I put it in, 8 times it came back at 7 or 8 wins. Now, again, it's AI. Probably knows better than the rest of us. So anyway, very interesting. And that was with a prompt around, hey, looking at all the teams, what they've done, looking at schedules and how those teams have gotten better or worse. What do you end up? But life is definitely more interesting than fiction or prediction. So we'll see how it goes. But Darien, thanks so much, man. We appreciate the call. All right. Good discussion there. I love that. And now we're moving on to our buddy Tariq out in Chicago. Here's Tariq.
What's up, Scott and Mo? Greetings from Chicago. This is Tariq. I just want to talk a little Raiders. There's kind of the dead period before we headed to training camp. I wanted to get your thoughts on Christian Wilkins. I think if he indeed has surgery, which requires him to miss the entire upcoming season, fairly confident that he will have played his last game as a Raider last year. I think the Raiders should bite the bullet and move on from him. I don't know what kind of out we have. If we just have, I know he had over 84.75 million guaranteed money. He was brought in by a previous regime. So I think if he's unable to go, they need to cut their losses and move on from him. Spytech has said repeatedly that, as far as his draft criteria, he wants players who want 24/7 ball, and that's it. So young cats like Tonka Hemingway and JJ Pegues should be licking their chops if they get that opportunity. It looks like they most certainly will. Unfortunately, we will be relying quite heavily on Adam Butler. I believe he had 5 sacks last year. He is on the opposite side of 30, so on the wrong side of 30, but hopefully he still has some gas left in the tank. I am excited. I don't know when's the last time I've been this excited about a Raiders rookie class. I can't wait to training camps here. It still seems like light years away. And I like what you guys said with regards to proposing top Raiders at particular positions. Maybe this offseason is before training camp starts. My top 3 quarterback are Plunkett, clearly because he has 2 rings. Stabler has a ring, and then Gannon has an AFC title. Marcus Allen, hands down, is the greatest Raider running back of all time. And my favorite Raider of all time is Tim Brown, best Raider receiver of all time. And then Biletnikoff comes second. Can't wait to hear you guys' show as we navigate this kind of dead period, a few weeks out from training camp. Hope you guys are having a great summer, and I'll talk to you again soon. Go Raiders. Bye-bye.
All right, there's Tariq. Mo, Christian Wilkins, right? What do you think?
So I talked about this on Monday on my Bleacher Report Live. So this is right up my alley because I have a usual suspect at my Bleacher Report Live show. Shout out to Jay Salito, who's there almost every day. But he is fed up with Christian Wilkins, and he's just like, just cut the guy, cut bait. He was along with Tariq saying, you just got to move on. He's 30 already. He's got this foot injury, 300-pounder. Just move on, right? There's frustration built up there because he only played 5 games last year. And by the way, he got hurt celebrating. Okay, quick tangent. NFL players, I get it. You're excited. You're making millions. You're living out your dream. But celebrate responsibly. How many times do we have to see players celebrate and then suffer a major injury? I remember Lamar Houston doing the same thing with the Raiders. Got hurt celebrating. But that's neither here nor there for right now. Let's get to the contract. If the Raiders were to cut Christian Wilkins next offseason, they will be left with over $37 million in dead cap money. So if they do cut bait with Christian Wilkins, they would have to restructure that contract first. Because there's no way I'm cutting Christian Wilkins and being saddled with over $37 million for a guy who's not on my roster.
Yeah, and it's 39.7 to be exact.
So I'm writing it out. Whether he gets surgery or not, I'm writing it out for at least another year because no one's probably going to trade for him. Again, by next year, he'll be on the other side of 30. He'll be coming off of multiple surgeries, and he hadn't had played for over a year. So his trade value is going to be nuked anyway. But unless they restructure his deal, you're better off just writing it out because the way the contract is constructed, he's going to be on the roster for at least another year.
Yeah, and the only way they can recoup some cash is an injury settlement type thing where they would settle with him, but they can also, if you don't know, they insure players too, and there's a way to do that. But if you look at it, to your point about the $39 million, they don't have a potential out until 2027. So you'd have to your point, Mo, really important, which is they'd have to restructure. And would he restructure to facilitate a trade? Probably, maybe. If it looks like, because some of these injuries you never know. Sometimes they can be career ending. And if that's the case, then you're looking for a settlement. You want a big lump sum out the door so that not only does the team save a little bit, but you make your money. Because remember, this contract, this year he's got a base salary of $8 million, total cap hit about $18 million. But next year his base salary is $25 million base, with a bunch of incentives there too. The dead cap goes down from 47 million this year to 29, but the pre-cut, post-cut, or pre-June versus post-June, as you said, it's about 39 million bucks. So yeah, it's a tough situation. And it's interesting though, like a guy gets hurt, and I know he got hurt celebrating. So that's where I think fans have the rub, because you get hurt. Now, if you're continually hurt, fans get tired of it and they want to move on. In this case, though, it's just a situation where people want this defense to be stout, and they need players on the inside. People were excited about Christian Wilkins, but if you can't get on the field, it's not going to help out the team very much. So makes a lot of sense. And of course, Tariq, we appreciate your call as always. And again, if you want to call in, do so. 702-900-7869. That's 702-900-7869. We'll get you on next week. And as we get through the rest of June and into July before camp, we'll have shows about this similar length and this similar subject matter and structure. And then we get towards the end of July, we start moving into camp, and you can catch us back on the radio in Las Vegas on KDON 101.5. And of course, the Bet HD2 Odyssey stations in Las Vegas. So we'll do that, but we'll get some more, and we're going to have some rankings. Mo and I haven't decided what we're going to do next week particularly, but we'll come to you and we will put ahead of time what we're going to talk about, because we want you to call in. So if we are doing running backs next year, or we're doing greatest teams in Raider history, whatever it may be, we'll let you know on our socials for both the show and for both Mo and I in advance, so that you can call in and get your call in, and we'll make your calls part of that process. And then of course you can react after we do our list. So anyway, Mo, let everybody know what you got coming up, not only the rest of this week, but also your Bleacher Report live plan for next week, Monday through Wednesday.
Well, first of all, I have to go out and get some sun. As I said, I haven't been outside in 3 days, so that's what I'm going to do.
You're looking pale, man. You're looking pale. I meant to tell you that.
And then Back next week with as usual, the Bleach Report lives. We'll get into some more fun topics. If you're tuning into those lives, continue to tune in 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Wednesday. And then I'll go through the depth chart. I'm thinking about going through the depth chart on for Sports Not for my write up of the week for the Raiders. I'll take a look at some of the biggest position battles that are going to be going on. We talked about a little bit about the guard position, cornerback, but there's some other rotational spots that I think should be up for grabs come training camp, which will be here pretty soon in a few weeks. As I said, Raiders rookies report July 17th. The veterans will join them on July 22nd. So training camp is around the corner. We get a bit of a break, but we have to keep you abreast on what's going on because the pads will start popping pretty soon.
Absolutely. Yes. And I'm actually doing a Raiders piece up on Sportsnot this coming week, Mo, on the tight end situation, right? So we know Brock Bowers unquestionably, but what about Michael Mayer? What are they going to do with the position? What can we learn from the way that Pete Carroll used tight ends in previous stops? So I'll do a little piece about that. So it'll be interesting.
Not surprised. A Notre Dame guy doing a feature on a Notre Dame player. How about that?
Well, he's the number 2 guy. I mean, the number 1 guy is a Georgia guy. But yeah, you know, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Anyway, so look for that stuff. We will send that out. If you follow Mo, MOEMOTON on X.com, you can find his stuff there. You can also follow me at LV Gully, Gully, and the show is SNB Today. Mo, my friend, is always a pleasure. I will see you next week.
Take care, Scott. Take care, Raider Nation.
All right, for everybody here at Silver and Black today, including our producer, Mike Robier over at Odyssey, we appreciate you being with us. For Mo Moten, and I'm Scott. Yes, rewind. For Mo Moten, I'm Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black today. We'll see you all next week, Raider Nation. Have a great weekend.